Support for Consider This is provided by the University of Nebraska at Omaha College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Multiple sclerosis, MS, is a disease that affects the central nervous system, the CNS, which consists of the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. Everything we do, whether it's taking a step, solving a problem, or simply breathing, relies on the proper functioning of the CNS. To understand how MS may impact the CNS, we must explore the disease at the cellular level. In the brain, millions of nerve cells called neurons continually send and receive signals. Each signal is a minute but necessary part of intricate CNS orchestrations that culminate in the actions, sensations, thoughts, and emotions that comprise the human experience. Normally, the path over which a nerve signal travels is protected by a type of insulation called the myelin sheath. This insulation is essential for nerve signals to reach their target. In MS, the myelin sheath is eroded, and the underlying wire-like nerve fiber is also damaged. This leads to a breakdown in the ability of the nerve cells to transmit signals. It is believed that the loss of myelin is the result of mistaken attacks by immune cells. Immune cells protect the body against foreign substances, such as bacteria and viruses. But in MS, something goes awry. Immune cells infiltrate the brain and spinal cord, seek out the myelin, and attack. As ongoing inflammation and tissue damage occurs, nerve signals are disrupted. This causes unpredictable symptoms that can range from numbness or tingling to blindness and paralysis. These losses may be temporary or permanent.
Once a person receives the diagnosis, then what? Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, living with a disability. Joining us to talk more about it are Bevan Phillips, an occupational therapist and certified aging in place specialist. Bevan is with Total Home Access Solutions, a division of Total Respiratory and Rehab. Mark Zach, owner of Mobility Motoring, and Daryl Kuchera, owner of MS Forward in Omaha. Welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
You bet. Bevan, we're going to start with you. How do you define a disability?
Well, defining a disability, working with definitions is a great way to start, Kathy. The interesting thing about defining disability is you could be talking about a legal definition or a very personal definition. Simplest to start with what the American with Disability Act guideline defines a person with disability as, and that would be someone who has a mental or physical impairment that significantly impacts their ability to participate in a major life activity. So it's really broad. Mm-hmm. Then you pull that down, and most people, myself included, have a more personal definition of disability. It's something that interferes with your ability to do something you want to do, like walk or feed yourself or go to the bathroom or get in and out of your house.
Wow, thank you. Mark, how many Americans are living with a disability?
Approximately 57 to 60 million people today live with some form of disability.
Wow, and Daryl, when you think about that, the majority of those folks weren't born with a disability, including you. So if you would please take us back to 2001 and talk about kind of what was going on in your life at that time.
You know, for me, I was in control of everything. You know, we had a wonderful family. I was married for 11 years at the time, 2 wonderful children, you know, a wonderful job, and we were just really fulfilling a life's dream. And that was to open up our own business, which was a gym here in Omaha, to work with athletes as they get ready to go to the next level in sports. Teach them proper strength training and agility training and speed training. So, you know, I continued to work out all my, you know, in the mornings, in the evenings. Everything was just great. Life was absolutely wonderful. So, you know, and you really don't, and you hear from others and say, well, boy, life can change in a second. Yeah. But it really didn't affect my life really until later on.
So when did you realize, maybe more importantly, accept that something was wrong, Daryl?
You know, in August of 2001, we opened our gym here in Omaha. And exactly a month to the date, and it's always so interesting when you talk to more people that have been diagnosed with some illness, they'll remember the date and the time when their life changed. For me, it was September 18th, the month after we opened the gym, 10:10 in the morning, and I was just in my office. We had our job as our gym was getting going, and the lights just started flashing in my office, just with no warning. And then I asked a young lady, I said, would you give maintenance a call when we're done with this call? Because I think the fluorescent bulbs are going out. She goes, what are you talking about? I go, you can't see the bulbs going out? She goes, no. And as I stepped out of my office, the entire building was flashing. That was on a Tuesday, and by Friday I had lost my sight in my left eye, and then just the little pinhole kind of in the right side. So that was really starting. At that point, I'd never heard of multiple sclerosis or anything yet at that time.
Wow. So I can't even imagine that. What point did you pick up the phone and call somebody to say, I got to figure out really what this is?
And I think probably for many people, who do you call? I really didn't know what I had or what I was going through. So I called my optometrist, went in on that Monday morning, and he goes, Daryl, your eyes look great, but there's something goofy going on in the back of your eye. So he sent me to a neurologist. And that's where, after a whole gamut of tests, he said, I think you might have what's called multiple sclerosis. And I'll be honest, I'd never heard of it before. I've never heard of MS before that time. And I had 100 questions to his one answer. And it was all the things that go through your mind. It's, boy, we just invested a lot of money in this gym. What's this going to do to my family? What's this going to do to my life? And so the control that I had went to the disease and to the doctors. So that was the biggest change. I'm no longer in control. The disease has me, and the doctors, and the neurologists, what they have to really have control of where I go next.
Talk about the weeks and even months that followed that 4 days of just.
It was just it was a spectrum of feelings, anger. So why me? I think everybody goes through that. And some bewilderment. What's this going to mean for us? At that time, I talked to a lot of people, and they said, Daryl, you can't start a business. Boy, it's a good thing this happened. You can maybe sell it, get a lot of your money back. And I remember just going to the phone after I heard that, calling my wife and just bawling, going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We invested a lot of money. This has been a dream. What's this going to do to the kids? All those, wow, this is going to change our lives. And I was one of the not smart people and went on the internet and pulled up chat rooms. I don't even know if they even exist anymore. But it was just the horrible of the horrible. You think, oh my gosh, am I going to really wake up the next morning? So all these feelings, without being educated at that time, went through your mind. And they were always the worst. They were never the good things, like, oh, something great still may happen. So I was really, upset for so long and just couldn't sleep. And the sight came back probably after about 7 days. But I would remember waking up in the middle of the night just hyperventilating because it was just black. And people had told you, yeah, your sight's going to come back, but you really didn't know for sure. So that was the scary part of everything. So again, but I think the biggest thing, Kathy, was that feeling of I'm in control of everything to now I have no control. That was very difficult to adjust to.
And Bev Ann, that's usually about the time when you're meeting people, kind of between that control and now fear of what's going to happen. So before we go too much further, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm an occupational therapist. We are health professionals that are very concerned with how a person can go through those daily occupations. So we are a health profession, medically, scientifically based, that's looking for ways to help people find the tools they need to either compensate for something they can't do or to regain those skills, because that's what gives people control. We're trying to give them tools they need to be able to gain some control back of their lives. I currently work for a durable medical equipment dealer, and I'm part of a construction company. So I've taken my background as an occupational therapist one step further. We're actually changing a person's home environment to better match their abilities, to give them control over what they can do in that home.
Wow, and
that's-
you're talking, and I'm thinking, okay, that sounds great, but then I'm constantly going back to the emotion involved. I mean, it takes a special person to do what you do in terms of what you've just described, but also to be empathetic to the situation at hand and knowing that you're meeting a Daryl in the midst of a life-changing event. Maybe you didn't know him beforehand, but now you're getting to know him, and you have to be aware of all of that as well.
Well, that is true. I'm meeting people who are sometimes at the very best that a person can be because that's how they're handling crisis. Sometimes I'm meeting people who are not at their best because that's how they handle crisis. But it's always interesting to sit and listen and try to be a little bit of stability that can give somebody some concrete information that they can hold on to when they're making these choices and decisions. One of the biggest things that people come to me with is just not knowing what to do. And it's not my job to tell them what to do, but to explain some options so that they can make educated decisions.
Okay, let's go into that before we put up some photographs, because we're going to do that.
Okay.
When someone picks up the phone and they call you and they've been through their respective situation, you go into the home and you kind of take a look around, right? And try to match things up. So talk about maybe that preliminary or that initial assessment, that initial walkthrough.
What we're doing?
Yeah.
You know, I am going to people's homes, and first of all, I'm usually sitting down at the kitchen table or in the living room or somewhere where they invite me to sit, and I try to take some time and listen to what it is that's important to them to be able to do, because I'm never going to live in their home with them, and what I would choose to do may not be the right thing for them. So my first step is listening. Sometimes I'll walk into somebody's house and they'll have a whole long list of things they've already figured out they want to do, and I'll ask them to back up one step with me and help me start off with their goals. Then I can look at their abilities, maybe educate them a little bit about what to expect or what some people have happen if they have the same disease process, and pros and cons of different equipment or different pieces of structural remodeling. Then if they want me to, we'll go through and we'll measure things and say, you know, this door can be widened easily, this door can be widened at great expense. You know, it's those kinds of concrete pieces of information that we like to give.
Excellent. Let's take a look at some of the examples of what you've been able to do for people to make their homes safe and much more accessible. So let's start with our first photograph.
Okay. What you're looking at is a pretty advanced transfer system. Most of us take for granted the ability to simply get up out of a chair and head off to the kitchen or out the door or to the toilet. And this is an overhead transfer system. You see us during part of construction, and then you see an individual in a body support who, this is used instead of a sling for some people. She could put this on by herself and actually go from room to room using her lift system.
Okay.
And this is a client's bathroom. The sink closest to us is a traditional roll-under sink for the part of the couple that used a wheelchair. The other sink which matched it is for the person who's standing. So we were trying very hard to make this an accessible bathroom and yet a very beautiful bathroom. And this is one of my clients who is showing off his new house. We helped him modify his new home plan so that he wouldn't have to turn a sharp 90-degree corner from his hallway into his bedroom and his office. So you can see down at the end of the hallway, it almost looks like a little Y. It was a simple change to make prior to construction in this new home build, but made a huge difference for him functionally.
Wow, so Mark Bevan helps folks get around their homes, navigate, be able to do that successfully. But then we talk about getting out into the community, especially on the roadways there, and that's where you come into play. Before we talk about that specifically, tell us about your journey to mobility motoring.
Well, Kathy, my journey to mobility motoring started way back in the days when we were putting van conversions together for people to travel. A gentleman asked me, could you put a lift in one? His son broke his back in an accident. And that was the beginning of talking about mobility in a van other than just transporting people. And that evolved from van conversions to mobility motoring, which today pretty much that's all we do is put together vehicles for, just like Daryl. We built Daryl's van. And what we do is we kind of get together and we talk about an evaluation, because it's not only Daryl's needs, it's also for his family. Do we have enough seat belts? And then in that free evaluation, we talk about head clearance, and when we get to some of our pictures, you'll see it's important that, because some of the vans have different floor heights, it could be a 10-inch lowered floor or a 14-inch lowered floor. And it's important when we roll in, we still have good eye level looking out the windows. And of course, other family needs. So this evaluation is critical. And we work not only with the private sector, but we work with the rehab centers, we work with nursing care facilities.
Interesting. We'll look at your photos now too, and you can just kind of walk us through what we're seeing in terms of, the functionality of this stuff.
Well, this picture you're looking at now, you see two vans. One is a side loading van, the other is a rear loading van. And the red van on your left, that's identical to Daryl's van. He can actually roll in and drive from his wheelchair. Or he could sit right next to the driver's seat and be a passenger, or he could sit in the middle of that van if someone else was driving. Those two front seats are quick removable so that someone else could drive the vehicle also. There's a bench in the back that has 3 seat belts. So you actually could have 3 belted people in the back and 2 up front, whether one is using a wheelchair or not. The van on the right is a rear loading van. And for example, if you have a single car garage, the side load just won't work because you don't have enough width in the garage. Also, we have some people that like to recline in their wheelchair when they're being transported, and you don't have the length in the side load van that you have in that rear loading van. So you have advantages and disadvantages of both vehicles. This particular picture here, you can see there's seat belts for 4 people, 2 up front, 2 in the middle, and a location for a wheelchair. Those 2 middle seats you see actually can fold up, and we can actually put 2 wheelchairs in, which makes this a very popular vehicle for care facilities. This picture again is a side load van. And when you push a button, the door opens, the ramp comes out, and the vehicle actually kneels down, so you have a very low angle going into the van. And you notice that head clearance, that picture you see there, that's a 14-inch lowered floor, which gives you height inside of approximately 60 inches. If you get a person that's really tall in their wheelchair, that's the size of minivan you want to go with. This picture here shows you if you're using a wheelchair, you can actually sit right next to the driver. And if you'll notice that pedestal on the left, it's got that little foot lever you can push down. You push that lever down, it sets that seat up on wheels. You can roll it out and you can actually drive from your wheelchair.
That's unbelievable. Now, you showed us 4 photographs. What are some other things that maybe we wouldn't think about in terms of vehicle modification to make life a little bit easier for the person who's wanting to continue to get out and about?
Well, Kathy, especially if you're driving from your wheelchair or transferring into the driver's seat, you're going to need hand controls for the gas and the brake and a steering knob to help turn the steering wheel. I had a lady that had a stroke and it affected her right side, and whenever she got her hand up the steering wheel, it caused her pain in her shoulder, and the steering knob made turning the steering wheel a lot easier.
Okay. Now, the two of you work independently of one another, but there's also huge advantages and benefits, obviously, to the people you're serving when you work together. Can you think of maybe a project where you had maybe Bevan, they start with you? I would imagine they likely start with you because they're thinking about their home environment more immediately than maybe they are getting out and about. So how does that work when you get a phone call? You're thinking, ooh, this might be a good person to visit with Mark. How does that work in terms of your collaborating with one another?
Well, it is a good thing for people to work with the folks from Mobility Motoring. I mean, when we refer people to other service companies, we're always glad to refer them to somebody who's going to treat them the same way that we would, and who's also going to be really comfortable communicating with us. I mean, there's been several times when I'm working in a garage trying to help somebody figure out, is it a ramp we need, or is it a vertical platform lift, which is a sort of a personal elevator, and we start talking about what kind of vehicle are you going to use, and they haven't even thought about it. Now, that's not my area of expertise, but I can put them in touch with someone who can work through all the details, and then we can figure out what kind of vehicle they're going to use, which means, what kind of space we need to leave in the garage, or as Mark said, if we've got to take up the space in the garage, well, maybe that's going to help them figure out what kind of vehicle they need. So it's nice to be coordinated, because then you end up with things that actually work together the way you expect them to.
Wow.
Which is really cool.
What a concept. That's awesome.
And also, Kathy, one of the things very important, especially in a power wheelchair, some of the power chairs that are built are for, say, in-home use only. They're not built for transporting. Therefore, they have no hookups for our tie-downs or for our electric lockdown system. So our coordinating this type of thing with their wheelchair, and if it's going to be in a vehicle, make sure the the base of the power wheelchair is built to be transported. It's very important.
Daryl, I'm really liking this dialogue, because at the beginning of this interview you talked about, which I think most people are in that boat, where do I start in the throes of a life-changing event? Who do I even know, to call? And when you can place one call and know that that individual is going to start connecting the dots for you, helping you navigate through, it makes life more bearable in a time that is extremely challenging.
Oh, you said it so well, and it's about a community. If you try to tackle this disease or any disease by yourself, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. And we got a chance to meet both of these fine folks here over the last years. Bevan was the most difficult, because I got references from so many people who said things like said things like it was. So if they said, Bevan's not doing a great job, they would have told me that. But I've got so many people that just sing her praises, and how she has changed their life. Her and her people have changed their lives. And that's how I got to know Bevan. Actually, we have an email out to Bevan. She's so busy she hasn't opened it yet, about some things we want to work with her, my wife Patty and myself. So that's how I met Bevan. Really just some terrific references from people. And with Mark, in 2010, for so long, I was driving with picking up my right leg, move it over to the brake, pick it up, move it over to the gas. And I was driving into work one day, and it was just, my legs were so stiff, and I tried to move it over, and it just wouldn't. So I probably stopped about a foot from going through the front of our building at our gym. So this is probably not going to be a good thing. So I didn't drive for, I bet you 16, 18 months. My wife just drove me everywhere, and you just don't believe how much independence you lose when you don't have a vehicle. It's just absolutely amazing. So truly, my wife heard about one of Mark's associates, Kent, and that's how we got a hold of him, and boy, he just changed my life. I mean, it's amazing what a vehicle does to change your life. And the great thing about what Kent does, and I'm saying this not because he's sitting here, but because this is true, they understand the disease. They understand the importance of what your role is, what your activity is every day, and they went to the minutest detail to find out the vehicle that I needed that was going to suit everything I needed. And that's why it's very easy to recommend Mark to anybody that goes through this. So.
Well, so Daryl, in just the minutes that we have remaining, I think our viewers are probably curious to know too. Tell us about life today, right? And as you're doing that, we're going to show a video of your gym. So tell us about life today.
Great. In 2000, I will say, I am the most blessed person in the world with MS. I can honestly say that. We've been able in 2003 to modify part of our gym to work with people once physical therapy is over, mostly MS, Parkinson's, any autoimmune disease. And we've opened up our gym to a post-physical therapy program. And that's what you can see a little bit of on our screen. We have those that haven't walked and stood in 20 years to those that are still running 5 miles a day. But I think the key is they all work out together. You know, they all work out together, and it's amazing the community that is formed. And what you see on the screen, we actually do a boot camp for people with MS. So you'll see a combination of walkers, you'll see some canes, but these guys are overcoming something that everybody told them they couldn't do. And I think that's where I just get inspired so much, and they inspire me. You know, every day to wake up every day and go into the gym and be inspired by the people you train, I couldn't ask for anything more. So it is, to me, it has been such a blessing, and the people I've met are just fantastic.
Wow.
So that's where I believe MS has been such a tremendous change. It's caused such a tremendous change in my life for the better, definitely.
So final question, what's next for you, Daryl?
You know, our goal, our mission is to reach every person with MS in the United States. And the latest number is about 400,000 people. And so we are, this weekend, actually testing an live online broadcast from our gym. So anybody with a cell phone, with an iPad, with a TV, with a laptop, with the computer can log into our gym, and we can hear them, they can talk to, and we can hear them, they can hear us, and we can talk and correspond with that way. So we are so close to getting that implemented.
Pretty amazing how one life touches another, as is the case with the three of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unbelievable. I want to put up some websites so that if folks are wanting information about any one of the three of you, they can certainly log on. Bevan is right there at the top, Total Respiratory and Rehab.com. Next would be Mark with Mobility Motoring, and that's Mobility Vans, OmahaNE.com. And finally with Daryl, msforward.org. If anybody is going to get you inspired and motivated and encouraged, it would be any one of the three of you. I want to thank you all very, very much for being here today, for sharing your time, your expertise, your stories, and Daryl for inspiring us above and beyond what we would have ever imagined. You're amazing.
It was a pleasure. Thank
we
you.
wish you the very, very best moving forward in whatever you do.
Thank you, Kathy.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.